Welcome to our review on active transport. First thing, as always, is the definition for the process. So active transport is the movement of substances from an area of low concentration or a dilute solution to an area of high concentration or a more concentrated solution. So what they're actually doing is those substances are moving against the concentration gradient because they're going from the low concentration to the high concentration. Because they're going against the concentration gradient, then they need energy to do this. So it's an active process, hence the name active transport. And the energy that we use for this comes from respiration. And as a result of that, what you actually tend to find is that any of these cells that are carrying out lots of active transport have lots of mitochondria present, because the mitochondria, as hopefully you remember from our earlier video, is the site of respiration, which is where we're going to transfer the energy. If we then consider where we will see active transport taking place, if we think about plants first of all, then plants are going to be using active transport to take in minerals that they need for their healthy growth from the soil into the plant. And a good example of this are things like nitrates. Now, in order to let this take place, then our plants have got these specialized cells called root hair cells. And you can see in the diagram at the bottom that those sit in the soil where we've got a low concentration of those different minerals. And inside the plant itself is a much higher concentration. So they're going to be moving from the low concentration in the soil to the high concentration inside our root hair cells using energy through this process of active transport. If we now turn our attention to humans, then we also use active transport. And the key place that we will see this is in our small intestine. So obviously we've got small intestine as part of our digestive system. And what we actually find is that the small intestine is the location where we're going to absorb these useful nutrients into the blood. And the one we're going to look at here is glucose. So glucose is something we need for respiration in all our cells. And what happens is, as our carbohydrates from our diet pass through our actual intestines, they get broken down into the glucose units, and those are then actively transported into the bloodstream through these structures called villi, which you can see in the picture at the bottom there. And we're going to have a little look at the villi in a bit more detail in a future video. Last thing I've got here for you is a quick summary table of our three different transport processes that we've encountered. So diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. So what I've done here is I've just given you a summary of the actual movement of the substances and if they need energy or not. So in terms of diffusion, then the particles are moving from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. So that's going down the concentration gradient. It's a passive process, no energy needed. Second process is osmosis, which is where the water molecules are moving from a high water concentration to a lower water concentration across a partially permeable membrane. Again, this is going down the concentration gradient. So it's passive, no energy needed. Our third and final one, active transport, the particles are moving from a low concentration to a high concentration. Therefore, it's an active process and energy is needed. Hopefully at the end of this video you can define what active transport is, you can give examples of where it's used in organisms, and you can also compare our three transport processes, diffusion, osmosis and active transport.